Hi, so it's me again, Nick Howarth, with another rather sad story about a very good friend of mine in the Internal Stability Division back in the late 80s, early 90s, a guy called Sergeant JP van Wyk, who was brutally murdered in a township called Daveyton on the East Rand, just outside Benoni. This was in an operation where there was an Inkatha Freedom Party march that day, and there was about, I don't know, 2,000, 1,500, 2,000 Inkatha marches. They were normally reasonably peaceful unless the ANC guys intervened. But normally the IFP guys, the Inkatha Freedom Party guys, were reasonably chilled with their marches. However, this particular day, I was stationed at the Donata base, and we were called out to go and assist. There was not enough men on the ground there. We were never enough men on the ground. So my section went out to Daveyton, and we stopped off at the radio room there. And Colonel Hein Kilian was in command of the situation, and he asked me to get off the Casper and to go man the radio, because I knew the township very well. He also trusted me in my judgment as to being able to, run the operation from the radio room, and under his orders mostly. So he ordered me off the Casper. I was sitting right in the back seat of the Casper that day, and he told JP van Wyk, who was actually from the Daveyton outside platoon, to get on the Casper in my place. So I got off, went into the radio room. I mean, it was really just another day at the office for us. It wasn't really anything special. And off they went. And a little bit later, Warrant Officer Marius Nell contacted me on the radio, and he said they have a bunch of about 250 to 350 ANC guys who are armed to the teeth and want to go and cause trouble at this Inkatha Freedom Party march. So they were like one vehicle. There was one Casper there, and probably, I think, like 8 men on this Casper, and they were waiting for backup because Colonel Kilian told me to tell them that they should contain these guys and see if they can get their weapons off them. So they had to wait for another Nyala to arrive. Nyala was a smaller armored troop carrier than the Casper, so which did. And as this other troop carrier arrived, which also had around about 6 or 7 men on it, the back doors of the Casper opened, and JP stepped out onto the step. And within seconds, this mob got hold of JP and dragged him into the crowd. And apparently his shotgun jammed, and he couldn't defend himself. So he was brutally murdered in this crowd. They just went at him, took him apart like so bad, and they got 2 of our other guys as well, but these guys managed to make their way back into the Casper with wounds. They were both wounded. I still remember the one guy, I think he had a gash over the back of his head from a panga. And what had happened just before that, before these ANC guys attacked these vehicles, is there was a Sangoma there who was like a witch doctor, and he was sprinkling water on all the guys with this branch and this bucket of water, and he was telling them that the police bullets will turn to water if they have the spell cast on them, which obviously didn't happen because they thought that was going to happen. So they stormed these 2 vehicles, thinking that the police bullets would turn to water. and they ended up trying to enter the Casper and the Nyala through the doors and through the roof. The roof in Casper is open. So these guys were climbing in the roof and they were inside the vehicle, and these guys were basically, the internal stability unit guys were basically fighting for their lives, and they opened fire, obviously, having seen what had happened to the other three, and especially JP. I don't know what the same happened to them. So they opened fire on these guys, and these guys just kept coming, and almost overran the Casper. And these guys emptied out their firearms on them, and ended up killing, I can't remember what the number is, it was like 12 or 13 people, and there was a good 20 odd which were quite badly wounded. Everybody shot from the front at close range. So anyway, we could hear this going on the radio, you know. I mean, literally, I was supposed to be in JP's place. I mean, I was sitting in the seat that he was sitting in. I mean, he got out first, obviously, because he was right at the back. And so fortunately, well, it didn't end up being very successful because JP was so badly hurt. But our medic, properly trained paramedic and ops medic, Louis Pretorius, great medic, great guy to have around when, you know, when the bullets were flying, they came hurtling back in the Anyala, and they had JP in the Anyala. And I still remember pulling him out of the Anyala, and there was pieces of bone. He'd had like hack marks all over his arms and his face, and he just had so many holes in his chest and stomach. He'd obviously been trying to protect himself with his arms like this, and he'd gotten very, very badly hurt. And he kept saying, you know, in Afrikaans, he was saying, "It's seer," which means it's sore. And myself and Louis picked him up, and we dragged him over to the door of the radio room, and I still remember we had him on the grey stones, like gravel, and we were taking turns in giving him CPR, myself and Louis. And I still remember looking into JP's eyes, and he had these beautiful blue eyes, and his eyes went grey, and he was like, he was getting softer and softer. He was like, I see it, you know. And he died right there. It was a very, very, very sad day. The saddest part was that the government failed these policemen after that. They took them to court, and there was a whole commission run by Judge Goldstone, who obviously had an agenda at the time. You know, they didn't want to shake too many cages, you know, rattle too many cages. So at the end of it, it came out that nobody was guilty of anything, and the police overreacted. The police were apparently just supposed to let them overrun them and kill them. You know, that would have been the correct action according to this commission, its findings. And I remember there was a truck that had just arrived after that, a Canter Toyota, a Canter truck that arrived just after that, full of like bodies and wounded, and I was a pallbearer at JP's funeral. JP was, he was married. He'd been married for I think 6 months. His wife was 3 months pregnant when this happened. And I remember carrying him to his grave and putting him on the little straps that going to lower him down into the hole. And they took the flag off and they folded it up and they gave it to his wife. And I still remember his camouflage cap was on the flag, and they gave that to her. And she was like in a bad state, and they started playing the last post on the bugle as his coffin was being lowered, and his wife burst into tears, and she started sobbing, and she started shouting that they need to stop playing this tune on it. very emotional. I mean, I don't know why they even play that tune at funerals. It's just, it's very emotional. So, yeah, they did stop playing, and I couldn't contain myself. I started sobbing. You know, I was standing right next to the grave as I started sobbing, and a guy next to me started sobbing, and it was such a sad day. It really was. JP was a very, very, very good operator. I mean, this guy, he could snuff out firearms. He could snuff out stolen vehicles. He was a brave guy, and he was the guy you wanted next to you in the vehicle. He was always reliable that way, you know. But yeah, that was a day that changed the lives of many internal stability unit guys. You know, I know that, you know, Marius Nell. I watched him, you know, go through this whole commission of investigation by Judge Goldstone, and it was horrible. I mean, he was so stressed out. It was such a stressful thing for all those guys. I mean, they were there almost 2-3 days a week, just giving evidence, and you know, I went and gave evidence one day as well. I was lucky in a way that I wasn't part of it, because they were really trying to pin this on these guys. You know, like, how could you kill so many? You know, the thing that they couldn't get around was that every single person who'd been shot was shot from close range in the front. And these guys lied. They said they were running away and fleeing for their lives, and the police opened fire on them. Obviously it was a lie. How were these guys shot from the front? They even tried to pin a murder of a young girl, which was about 500 or 600 meters away from this, and they said it was a police stray bullet that hit her, and they later found out that it was part of the political violence, and some thug in the township had murdered this young girl. So yeah, that was a very emotional time for our unit, and you know, there was a lot of, I wouldn't say there's a lot of stories like that, because that was quite brutal. But there's a lot of stories to be told in this book of mine, War and Peace. Go and check it out on Amazon. It's called War and Peace by Nick Howarth. If you type in Nick Howarth into Amazon, you'll find the book. It's got a picture of a Casper, a burnt out Casper on the front, on the cover. And have a read of the book. You'll really enjoy it. It's a good book, and it opens eyes. You know, this country is. That kind of violence is starting to spill over into the more affluent areas of South Africa at the moment, and there's nobody to contain it. There's no internal stability division anymore. There's a police force that's very lacking in skills and ability. You've got a couple of good guys who are still trying to keep the ship afloat, but bailing water like crazy. But it's not what it was back then. You know, we were highly trained, highly motivated. You know, we had a purpose. So yeah, have a read of it. I think you'll enjoy it. No matter who you are, I think you'll enjoy it.